Have you ever felt completely invisible in your own family? Like no matter how hard you worked or how much you sacrificed, you were always the one left standing in the shadows? I lived that reality for 32 years, silently funding my sister's carefree lifestyle, while being called selfish for not having one of my own. But one night at a fancy country club dinner, the truth finally came out. And the explosion that followed changed absolutely everything. My name is Audrey Wilson and I am 32 years old. For as long as I can remember, I have been the responsible one, the hardworking one, the one who always had to try twice as hard for half the recognition in my family. That night at the country club, when my father called me selfish in front of everyone while praising my sister Vanessa, something inside me finally snapped. After years of silent sacrifice, I spoke my truth, and the look on his face was worth every second of the uncomfortable silence that followed. I grew up in Oak Brook, a comfortable middle-class suburb just outside of Chicago. Our neighborhood was the kind with manicured lawns, community barbecues, and an unspoken competition for whose kids were the most accomplished. In our household, that unofficial trophy always went to my younger sister, Vanessa. From the beginning, my father, Harold, made no secret of his favoritism. Vanessa was born when I was 3, and from what my mother told me years later, Dad had always wanted a second daughter with more personality than his serious firstborn. Vanessa certainly delivered on that expectation with her outgoing nature and ability to charm adults from an early age. Vanessa has never met a stranger, my father would boast at neighborhood gatherings, while I stood quietly beside him, invisible in my sister's radiant shadow. My mother, Diana, tried to balance things out, but she was the quintessential peacekeeper. Rather than confronting the obvious favoritism, she would pull me aside after particularly hurtful incidents and whisper, "Your father loves you too, Audra. He just shows it differently." As I grew older, I realized what she really meant was that he showed it less, if at all. The contrast in how we were treated was stark. When I made the honor roll consistently throughout middle school, my achievements warranted a brief "good job" from my father. But when Vanessa landed a small role in the school play, he bought her flowers and took the entire family out to celebrate at a fancy restaurant downtown. "Your sister has star quality," he explained when I questioned the disparity. "Academic stuff comes easily to you, so it is not as impressive." Nothing came easily to me. I studied until midnight most nights while Vanessa flitted between hobbies and social events. But in our house, effort was invisible compared to natural charm. The dynamic shifted even more dramatically when our parents divorced during my junior year of high school. I was 16, focused on maintaining my grades while processing the family breakdown. Vanessa, at 13, became what my father called his emotional support during the separation. While he leaned on her, I was expected to be self-sufficient, the strong one who did not need comforting. After the divorce, weekend visitations became another arena for the imbalance to play out. My father would plan elaborate outings for Vanessa, while I was left to entertain myself at his new bachelor apartment. If I expressed any disappointment, he would label me as difficult or impossible to please compared to my easygoing sister. College presented new challenges. I had worked part-time throughout high school to save for tuition, expecting some parental support. Instead, I was told I needed to be independent and build character through student loans and work-study programs. Meanwhile, Vanessa received full financial support when her time came, with my father covering her tuition, apartment, and even a car. His explanation was that Vanessa was more delicate and needed the support to thrive. I put myself through Northwestern University, working 30 hours a week at a local coffee shop while maintaining a 3.8 GPA in marketing. Those years were a blur of exhaustion, determination, and growing resentment as I watched Vanessa drop out of 3 different colleges, with my father continuing to fund each fresh start. "College is not for everyone," he would say, defending her latest abandonment of education. "Vanessa is creative. She needs to find her path." After graduation, I secured an entry-level position at a respected marketing firm in Chicago. Through sheer determination and consistent 80-hour work weeks, I climbed to an executive position by the time I was 30. My success was self-made, something I took immense pride in despite the toll it took on my personal life. Vanessa, meanwhile, had developed a pattern of starting entry-level jobs with enthusiasm, only to quit within months when the work became challenging or boring. She cycled through positions as a receptionist, retail associate, yoga instructor, and personal assistant, never staying anywhere long enough to develop skills or advance. She also moved from one serious relationship to another, often living with boyfriends until inevitable breakups left her scrambling for housing. Throughout all of this, I built a small circle of trusted people who saw the truth of our family dynamic. My best friend Sophia had witnessed the disparities since childhood and provided a sounding board for my frustrations. "Your family is treating you like an ATM with legs," she told me bluntly after one particularly difficult family gathering. "They take and take but never acknowledge what you give." I also found understanding in my relationship with Derek, a graphic designer I had been dating for 2 years. Unlike previous boyfriends who had found my family situation too complicated, Derek recognized the manipulation and encouraged me to establish boundaries. "You cannot set yourself on fire to keep others warm," he would remind me when I was torn about saying no to yet another request for help from Vanessa. The most recent addition to our complicated family tableau was Brenda, my father's second wife, 15 years his junior, and unsurprisingly, firmly in Team Vanessa. From the moment she joined the family, Brenda positioned herself as Vanessa's advocate and confidant, often suggesting that I lighten up or be more supportive of my struggling sister. "Family helps family," Brenda would say meaningfully during holiday gatherings, her eyes fixed on me whenever Vanessa mentioned her latest financial crisis. What none of them understood or chose to ignore was that I had been helping silently and consistently for years. But the truth about exactly how much I had been supporting my sister would not remain hidden forever. The arrangement that would eventually lead to our family's reckoning began 2 years ago, when Vanessa called me sobbing at 11:30 at night. Her boyfriend of 8 months, Tyler, had broken up with her and asked her to move out of the apartment they shared. The rent was due in 3 days and she had no savings to secure a new place. "I have nowhere to go, Audra," she cried. "Dad says I cannot move back in with him and Brenda, because they converted the spare room into a home gym. Can I crash with you just for a few weeks?" My one-bedroom apartment was barely big enough for me, let alone a second person with extensive belongings. More importantly, I valued my personal space and knew from childhood experiences that living with Vanessa meant chaos and emotional drama. "I cannot take you in, but I can help you find a place," I offered instead. "How much can you afford for rent?" The answer, it turned out, was next to nothing. Vanessa had been contributing minimally to the rent with Tyler, spending most of her part-time barista earnings on clothes, dining out, and weekend trips with friends. Now she was facing the reality of Chicago's rental market, with almost no income and zero savings. Against my better judgment and Derek's cautious advice, I agreed to help her secure a studio apartment in Wicker Park. The rent was $1,200 monthly, reasonable for the area, but far beyond Vanessa's means. "I will cover the first 3 months," I told her firmly. "That gives you time to find a better-paying full-time job and get on your feet." Vanessa was effusively grateful, promising to update her resume immediately and search for higher-paying opportunities. I even connected her with contacts at several companies, leveraging professional relationships I had carefully built over years. 3 months came and went. Vanessa had taken a retail position at a boutique clothing store, but was still making barely enough to cover utilities and food, let alone rent. Each time I brought up the agreement, she had a new excuse. The job market was tough. The boutique did not give her enough hours. She needed expensive new clothes for interviews, or she had unexpected medical expenses. "Just 1 more month," became her mantra. "I promise I will figure it out." 1 month turned into 6, then a year. Before I knew it, I had been paying Vanessa's rent for 18 consecutive months, watching my own financial goals slip further away. The down payment I had been saving for a condo remained stagnant. The master's degree program I wanted to pursue stayed on hold. The European vacation Derek and I had been planning was indefinitely postponed. Meanwhile, Vanessa's Instagram told a different story than her financial hardship narrative. There were posts from weekend getaways to Michigan wineries, new designer clothes with tags still attached, and expensive restaurant meals with friends. Each time I questioned these expenditures, she had a ready explanation. Friends had treated her. She had found amazing sales. The trip was mostly paid for by someone else. The financial drain was significant, but the emotional toll was worse. Every month, transferring that $1,200 felt like a silent scream into the void. No one in our family knew about this arrangement, not even our mother. Vanessa had sworn me to secrecy, claiming she was too embarrassed to let others know how much she was struggling. In reality, she was not struggling at all, at least not in the ways that mattered. She had a free place to live, courtesy of my hard work, while maintaining the lifestyle of someone making 3 times her actual income. The family narrative remained frustratingly unchanged. At gatherings, my father and Brenda would talk about how Vanessa was finding her way and doing her best despite challenges. My own career successes were acknowledged briefly before someone changed the subject, usually to something more interesting that Vanessa was doing. "Are you coming on the family trip to Lake Geneva this summer?" my father asked during one Sunday phone call. "I do not think I can get the time off," I said, which was partially true. What I did not mention was that after paying Vanessa's rent, my own, and trying to maintain some semblance of retirement savings, another expense was out of the question. "You work too much, Audra," he sighed. "There is more to life than career. Look at Vanessa. She does not make much money, but she knows how to live in the moment and enjoy life." I bit back the obvious response that Vanessa could live in the moment because others were subsidizing her reality. Instead, I changed the subject, swallowing my resentment like a bitter pill. The comments about my supposed selfishness began to increase. When I could not contribute to an expensive group gift for my father's 60th birthday, Brenda made a point of saying, "I guess some people prioritize differently," with a meaningful look in my direction. When I missed a family dinner because of a work deadline, my father texted that I was too focused on your own life to think about family. The irony was suffocating. I was literally sacrificing my financial future for my sister while being labeled as selfish by the very people who had no idea what I was giving up. Derek witnessed my struggle firsthand, watching as I calculated and recalculated my monthly budget to accommodate Vanessa's rent, while maintaining my own financial obligations. "This is not sustainable," he told me one night after I had turned down a weekend away because of money concerns. "You are enabling her to stay stuck while punishing yourself." "What am I supposed to do?" I asked. "Let her become homeless?" "She would not be homeless," he said gently. "She would have to make different choices. Maybe get roommates, move to a cheaper area, or actually work full-time like most adults. You are not helping her by removing the natural consequences of her actions." I knew he was right, but years of family conditioning made it difficult to imagine standing up for myself. What would my father say? How would it affect my already tenuous relationship with Vanessa? Would this be the thing that finally fractured our family beyond repair? Still, something had to give. I tried taking a gentler approach first, meeting Vanessa for coffee to discuss a path toward financial independence. "I need to start thinking about my own financial goals," I explained carefully. "I cannot keep paying your full rent indefinitely." Vanessa's eyes immediately welled with tears, her go-to response when confronted with anything uncomfortable. "Are you saying you are cutting me off?" she asked, voice trembling. "You know I cannot afford that place on my own. Do you want me to be homeless?" "No, of course not," I backtracked immediately, hating myself for the weakness. "I just thought maybe we could create a plan where you gradually take over more of the rent." She sniffled, dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. "I am really trying, Audra. I just had to reduce my hours this month because of my anxiety. The manager was scheduling me for too many closing shifts, and you know how that affects my sleep." And just like that, the conversation shifted from her taking responsibility to me feeling guilty for adding to her stress. I left that coffee shop having agreed to continue the full payments for at least another 3 months. The cycle of enabling continued, with my resentment growing alongside my dwindling savings account. Something would have to break this pattern. As it turned out, that something would be my patience, pushed to its limit by one family dinner too many. The annual Wilson family dinner at the Oakbrook Country Club was a tradition my father had maintained since the divorce. Every year in June, he would reserve the private dining room, invite a few close friends, and gather the family for what he called a celebration of our ongoing bond. Despite life's changes, in reality, it was an opportunity for him to showcase his success and position as family patriarch, with all of us expected to play our assigned roles. As the date approached this year, my anxiety mounted. 2 days before the dinner, Vanessa called with what had become a predictable emergency. "Audra, I hate to ask, but I need a favor," she began, her voice taking on the hesitant tone that always preceded a financial request. "There is this amazing opportunity for a pop-up boutique event, but I need to pay for a vendor table up front. It could really help me start my own business." Vanessa's business ideas had become a revolving door of unrealized plans. Last month it was becoming a personal stylist, before that launching a wellness blog. None of these ventures ever materialized beyond the initial excitement phase, and certainly none had produced any income. "How much do you need?" I asked, already mentally adjusting my budget for the month. "Just $300, she said quickly. "The event is this weekend, and I could make back triple that amount if I sell even half my inventory." "What inventory?" I asked. "I did not know you had products to sell." "Well, I need to buy some things to resell," she admitted. "But I have done all the research. Trust me, this is going to be different." Against my better judgment and the imagined sound of Derek's disapproving sigh, I transferred the money. "Good luck," I said. "I hope it works out." The night of the dinner arrived, and I made my way to the country club with the familiar mix of obligation and dread. The dining room was elegant as always, with crisp white tablecloths and the soft glow of candles creating an atmosphere of refined comfort. My father and Brenda were already there along with their friends, the Hayeses and the Porters, couples in their 60s who had known our family for years. I spotted Vanessa across the room, animated in conversation with Mrs. Porter. As I approached, I noticed the large Louis Vuitton handbag on her arm, its distinctive pattern catching the light. The bag was new and, from my knowledge of the brand, cost at least $2,000, far more than the $300 he had sent forth a supposed business opportunity. My stomach tightened as realization dawned. There was no pop minus Youp event, Novendortable, no business plan. Themine hajonta were de luxury purchase Wiley had benieten gromenudless 3 nights oik tofset the constant drain in me finances. Audra eufinally mediat. My father called out, gesturing to theme to see at beside him. Worry just talking about Vanessa's exiting weekend plans. It took me seat, accepting a glass of wine from the server. Desperately needin jit skamanja effect. Yes, Vanessa Wastelingaseba's wonderful trip to Miami staking with her friends, Mrs. Hayes said, smiling warmly at my sister. A well-deserved break from what I hear. Any early coquette mean? Miami? Echoed, looking directly at Vanessa. She avoided me gaze, suddenly very interested in the dinner menu. Just a quick girls' weekend, nothing fancy. Vanessa found an amazing Delum flights. My fatheradet proudly. Always these avian when it comes to finding opportunities. The server arrived to tech corridors, temporarily halting the conversation. Isotins to excellence, piecing Togathurthful picture. The business opportunity had been a cover story for the remaining money she needed for a vacation, likely planned weeks in advance. Teddy Signerbog was probably another splurge, justified as something she deserved. As the appetizer served, the conversation shifted to other topics. Mr. Porter discussed a recent golf tournament victory. Brenda's heard stories from Air Garden Club. My father regaled virionu with anecdotes from his recent business trip to Boston. Thrufatal, remained quiet, as Stormber wing behind Mapala smile. Audra, you're unusual tonight. My father finally no edgering the make horse. Everything go right at wait work. Work is fine. Irrepletively. Just processing some information. You work too hard. Hesse dismissively. All those horse at the office and for what? You need to enjoy life more like your sister. Venus as Miladung comfortably, perhaps sensing me growing tension. Speaking of enjoying life, Brenda interjected. Vanessa Televernathanoga studio discovered. As Vanessa launched into a description of some overpriced boutique with fitness class, I felt my patience fraying. Every word from her mouth seemed to emphasize the disparity in how we lived and how we're family perceive it as. She was the free spirit, Theon wuckn how to live. I was the workaholic, the serious own, Theon supposedly missing guten life's pleasures. Nuni thatable knew that their carefree lifestyle existed because of me sacrifice. Nuna knew thathem for the apartment where she practiced at her leisure limmernen grouten scamma from my overworked whores. Nuna knew Thadion dream Sirion hold Sasha could chase herwums. Thuetof thy sunak knowledge adrility down on meest hedoner progressed. Each laugh, each approving nod fro me father toward Vanessa. Each dismissive egland sane mid erection titan thek notofresent mentamichist. Betheda meter minus were presented. Iwa sholding mijulf togather bethetha nest thread off composure. Then chemathecament thought would finally snap that thread. I am thinking about taking Gopateri class this summer. Venus announced the days would consider that our options. I have you always one tetatriot. Anther is amazing studio in Bucktown. That sounds wonderful, sweetheart. My father beamed. It is good to explore our creative aside. It is a bit expensive, Vanessa admitted, twirling her hair the shield wasted, when letting up to her request. But I think it would be really fulfilling. We're the veripany for something that for your soul, Brenda agreed. Life is too short not to pursue your patience. It took a long sip of water, trying to cool the theatrizing in midst. That pottery class was clear lie the next thing she expected meadow fund after the business opportunity that turned into a Miami trip, after 2 years of constant financial support. What a booty you, Audrey. Mrs. Porter Skedkinley, perhaps noticing my discomfort. Do you have any summer plans? Before I cold answer, my father jumped in. Auditrado esna thavdom forbius or vacations. Too busy climbing the corporate teletor. I actually had to cancel my plans to take some graduate course this summer, I said quietly. Budget constraints. That is the problem with our generation, Mr. Hayes commented. Too focused on credentials and unknown experiences. Or maybe some of you shave different priorities and responsibilities. I countered, unable to keep it from a voice. My father frowned. There is no need to be defensive, Audra. Howard is just making conversation. I am not being defensive. I am stating a fact. See, this is exactly what I mean. My father said, his voice rising slightly. Your sister takes constructive comments in stride. You always shave to argue and make things difficult. Thetable fell uncomfortable isolent that event hasten porter simita sense they had stumbled in tofumalightention. I did not make things difficult. I said evenly. I have different circumstances. What different circumstances? My father scoffed. You make it twice what our sister does. You live alone you with no dependence. You should have plenty of disposable income for things you enjoy. The twas themament semething shifted and sedeemed, theckerful wally had built around my resentment begun to crumble. 2 years softsolence, off enabling, off being the family a team while being little at a selfish sudden felt unbearable. You have annoyed hate me financial situationese. I said, my voice surprising like umdish patethi motion churning inside. Ik no wardoing well in your career. Head dismissed. And ik no ushizito spend it alone yourself while our sister struggles to make keen smeet. Then fairness of his assessment that maliki a physical blow. I looked around the debleat. He's people who had completely misunderstood my life and character. And decided the truth could no longer remain hidden. Dad, I said, placing my napkin beside my plate. When waste the last time I helped Vanessa financially? He blinked, surprised at that direct question. Well, he helped her with the security deposit on her apartment she moved in. And he have her shopping occasionally. And what do you think pay her rent every month? Fadeable went completely still. Event the background noise off the country club she met to foot away as Alice Sterned home. What are you talking about? My father asked, genuine confusion on his face. I have been paying Vanessa's rent for 2 years, I said, words finally released in Tothiapan. 300 I had sent her for the supposed business opportunity. My stomach tightened as realization dawned. There was no pop-up event, no vendor table, no business plan. The money had gone toward a luxury purchase, while I had been eating ramen noodles 3 nights a week to offset the constant drain on my finances. Audra, you finally made it, my father called out, gesturing to the empty seat beside him. We were just talking about Vanessa's exciting weekend plans. I took my seat, accepting a glass of wine from the server, desperately needing its calming effect. Yes, Vanessa was telling us about this wonderful trip to Miami she is taking with her friends, Mrs. Hayes said, smiling warmly at my sister. A well-deserved break from what I hear. I nearly choked on my wine. Miami, I echoed, looking directly at Vanessa. She avoided my gaze, suddenly very interested in the dinner menu. Just a quick girls' weekend, nothing fancy. Vanessa found an amazing deal on flights, my father added proudly. Always the savvy one when it comes to finding opportunities. The server arrived to take our orders, temporarily halting the conversation. I sat in stunned silence, piecing together the full picture. The business opportunity had been a cover story for the remaining money she needed for a vacation, likely planned weeks in advance. The designer bag was probably another splurge, justified as something she deserved. As the appetizers arrived, the conversation shifted to other topics. Mr. Porter discussed his recent golf tournament victory. Brenda shared stories from her garden club. My father regaled everyone with anecdotes from his recent business trip to Boston. Through it all, I remained quiet, a storm brewing behind my polite smile. Audra, you are unusually silent tonight, my father finally noted during the main course. Everything all right at work? Work is fine, I replied evenly. Just processing some information. You work too hard, he said dismissively. All those hours at the office and for what? You need to enjoy life more, like your sister. Vanessa smiled uncomfortably, perhaps sensing my growing tension. Speaking of enjoying life, Brenda interjected. Vanessa, tell everyone about that new yoga studio you discovered. As Vanessa launched into a description of some overpriced boutique fitness class, I felt my patience fraying. Every word from her mouth seemed to emphasize the disparity in how we lived and how our family perceived us. She was the free spirit, the fun one, the one who knew how to live. I was the workaholic, the serious one, the one supposedly missing out on life's pleasures. No one at that table knew that her carefree lifestyle existed because of my sacrifice. No one knew that the rent for the apartment where she practiced her leisurely morning routines came from my overworked hours. No one knew that my own dreams were on hold so she could chase her whims. The weight of this unacknowledged reality pressed down on me as the dinner progressed. Each laugh, each approving nod from my father toward Vanessa, each dismissive glance in my direction tightened the knot of resentment in my chest. By the time dessert menus were presented, I was holding myself together by the thinnest thread of composure. Then came the comment that would finally snap that thread. I am thinking about taking a pottery class this summer, Vanessa announced as we considered the dessert options. I have always wanted to try it, and there is this amazing studio in Bucktown. That sounds wonderful, sweetheart, my father beamed. It is good to explore your creative side. It is a bit expensive, Vanessa admitted, twirling her hair the way she always did when leading up to a request. But I think it would be really fulfilling. Worth every penny for something that feeds your soul, Brenda agreed. Life is too short not to pursue your passions. I took a long sip of water, trying to cool the heat rising in my chest. The pottery class was clearly the next thing she expected me to fund, after the rent, after the business opportunity, that turned into a Miami trip, after 2 years of constant financial support. What about you, Audrey? Mrs. Porter asked kindly, perhaps noticing my discomfort. Do you have any summer plans? Before I could answer, my father jumped in. Audra does not have time for hobbies or vacations. Too busy climbing the corporate ladder. I actually had to cancel my plans to take some graduate courses this summer, I said quietly. Budget constraints. That is the problem with your generation, Mr. Hayes commented. Too focused on credentials and not enough on experiences. Or maybe some of us have different priorities and responsibilities, I countered, unable to keep the edge from my voice. My father frowned. There is no need to be defensive, Audra. Howard is just making conversation. I am not being defensive. I am stating a fact. See, this is exactly what I mean, my father said, his voice rising slightly. Your sister takes constructive comments in stride. You always have to argue and make things difficult. The table felt uncomfortably silent. Even the Hayeses and Porter seemed to sense they had stumbled into family tension. I do not make things difficult, I said evenly. I have different circumstances. What different circumstances? My father scoffed. You make twice what your sister does. You live alone with no dependents. You should have plenty of disposable income for things you enjoy. That was the moment something shifted inside me. The careful wall I had built around my resentment began to crumble. 2 years of silence, of enabling, of being the family ATM while being labeled as selfish suddenly felt unbearable. You have no idea what my financial situation is, I said, my voice surprisingly calm despite the emotion churning inside. I know you are doing well in your career, he dismissed. And I know you choose to spend it all on yourself while your sister struggles to make ends meet. The unfairness of his assessment hit me like a physical blow. I looked around the table at these people who had completely misunderstood my life and character, and decided the truth could no longer remain hidden. Dad, I said, placing my napkin beside my plate. When was the last time you helped Vanessa financially? He blinked, surprised by the direct question. Well, I helped her with the security deposit on her apartment when she moved in, and I have taken her shopping occasionally. And who do you think pays her rent every month? The table went completely still. Even the background noise of the country club seemed to fade away as all eyes turned to me. What are you talking about? My father asked, genuine confusion on his face. I have been paying Vanessa's rent for 2 years, I said, the words finally released into the open. 300 had sent their forth a supposed business opportunity. Miss stomach tightened as realization dawned. There was na pop minus yup event, navan dordable, no business plan. Themine had jonta were de luxury purchase wily had benitan gromanidless 3 nights oik tof set the constant drain in me finances. Audra euphonally mediat. My father called out, gesturing to themtisi at beside him. Worry just talking about Vanessa's exiting weekend plans. It took me seat. Accepting a glass of wine from the server. Desperately needin jit skamanja effect. Yes, Vanessa Wastelingaseba's wonderful trip to Miami staking with her friends, Mrs. Hayes said, smiling warmly at my sister. A well-deserved break from what I hear. Any early coquette mean? Miami? Echoed, looking directly at Vanessa. She avoided me gaze, suddenly very interested in the dinner menu. Just a quick girls' weekend, nothing fancy. Vanessa found an amazing Delum flights. My father did proudly. Always these avian when it comes to finding opportunities. The server arrived to tech corridors, temporarily halting the conversation. Isotins to excellence, piecing Togatherthful picture. The business opportunity had been a cover story for the remaining money she needed for a vacation, likely planned weeks in advance. Theddy Signerbog was probably another splurge, justified as something she deserved. As the appetizer served, the conversation shifted to other topics. Mr. Porter discussed a recent golf tournament victory. Brenda's heard stories from Air Garden Club. My father regaled virionu with anecdotes from his recent business trip to Boston. Thrufatal, remained quiet, as Stormber wing behind Mapala test smile. Audra, you're unusual tonight. My father finally no edgering the make horse. Everything go right at wait work. Work is fine. Irrepletively. Just processing some information. You work too hard. Hesse dismissively. All those horse at the office and for what? You need to enjoy life more like your sister. Venus as Mila dung comfortably, perhaps sensing me growing tension. Speaking of enjoying life, Brenda interjected. Vanessa Televernothanoga studio discovered. As Vanessa launched into a description of semi overpriced boutique fitness class, I felt my patience frang. Every word from her mouth seemed to emphasize the disparity in how we lived and how we're from perceive it as. She was the free spirit, Thefinon, Theon wuckn how to live. I was the workaholic, the serious own, Theon supposedly missing guten life's pleasures. Nuni thatable knew that their carefree lifestyle existed because of me sacrifice. Nuna knew thathem for the apartment where she practiced at her leisure limmernen grouten escama from my overworked whores. Nuna knew Thadion dream on hold Sasha could chase herwums. Thuetof thisunak knowledge adrility pressed down on meest hedoner progressed. Each laugh, each approving nod from me father toward Vanessa. Each dismissive egland sane me direction tighten thik not ofresent mentamichist. Betheda meter minus were presented. I was holding mijolf tagather Betheda nest thread off composure. Then Kemathikament thought would finally snap that thread. I am thinking about taking Gopateri class this summer. Venus announced the days would consider it that our options. I have you always wanted to treat. Anther is amazing studio in Bucktown. That sounds wonderful, sweetheart. My father beamed. It is good to explore our creative side. It is sabit expensive, Vanessa admitted, twirling her hair the shield wasted, when letting up to her request. But I think it would be really fulfilling. We're the veripany for something that for your soul, Brenda agreed. Life is too short not to pursue your patience. It took a long sip of water, trying to cool the theatrizing in midst. That pottery class was clearly the next thing she expected meadow fund after the business opportunity that turned into a Miami trip, after 2 years of constant financial support. What about you, Audrey? Mrs. Porter Sketkinley, perhaps noticing my discomfort. Do you have any summer plans? Before I cold answer, my father jumped in. Auditrado esna thavdom forbius or vacations. Too busy climbing the corporate elevator. I actually had to cancel my plans to take some graduate course this summer, I said quietly. Budget constraints. That is the problem with our generation, Mr. Hayes commented. Too focused on credentials and unknown experiences. Or maybe some of you shave different priorities and responsibilities. I countered, unable to keep it from a voice. My father frowned. There is no need to be defensive, Audra. Howard is just making conversation. I am not being defensive. I am stating a fact. See, this is exactly what I mean. My father said, his voice rising slightly. Your sister takes constructive comments in stride. You always shave to argue and make things difficult. Thateable fell uncomfortable isolent. Event hasten Porter simita since they had stumbled in tofumalitention. I did not make things difficult. I said evenly. I have different circumstances. What different circumstances? My father scoffed. You make it twice what our sister does. You live alone you with no dependence. You should have plenty of disposable income for things you enjoy. The twas themament semething shifted in sedeemed theckerful wally had built around my resentment begun to crumble. 2 years softsolence of enabling off being the family a team while being libel at a selfish sudden felt unbearable. You have annoyed hate me financial situationese. I said, my voice surprising like dish pateth emotion churning inside. Ik no wardoing well in your career. Head dismissed. And ik no ushizito spend it alone yourself while our sister struggles to make keen smeet. The unfairness of his assessment that maliki a physical blow. I looked around the debleat. He's people who had completely misunderstood my life and character. And decided the truth could no longer remain hidden. Dad, I said, placing my napkin beside my plate. When waste the last time I helped Vanessa financially? He blinked, surprised at that direct question. Well, he helped her with the security deposit on her apartment she moved in. And he had her shopping occasionally. And what do you think pays your rent every month? Fadeable went completely still. Event the background noise off the country club she met for away as I sterned home. What are you talking about? My father asked, genuine confusion on his face. I have been paying Vanessa's rent for 2 years, I said, words finally released in Tothiopan. 1,200 every month, directly to her landlord. That is why I cannot afford graduate school or vacations or pottery classes. My father turned to Vanessa, whose face had drained of color. Is this true? Vanessa's eyes darted around the table, looking for an escape route that did not exist. It is complicated. Audra offered to help temporarily when Tyler and I broke up. It was supposed to be short-term. 2 years is not short-term, I said. And I did not offer. You called me crying at midnight saying you would be homeless. You could have said no, she muttered. Yes, I could have. That is my mistake. One I am rectifying tonight. I turned back to my father, whose expression had shifted from confusion to discomfort. So when you call me selfish for not taking vacations or pursuing hobbies, understand that the money that might have gone to those things has been keeping a roof over your favorite daughter's head instead. Now Audra, my father started, clearly trying to regain control of the situation. There is no need to be dramatic about this. Family helps family. If you were struggling financially, you should have said something. I am not struggling. I am subsidizing someone else's lifestyle while being criticized for how I spend my own money. I am sure Vanessa is grateful for your help, Brenda interjected, attempting to smooth things over. Vanessa told me 3 days ago that she needed $300 for a business opportunity. I continued, ignoring Brenda's platitude. That money apparently went toward her Miami trip this weekend. And judging by the new Louis Vuitton bag, there have been other creative uses of funds as well. Vanessa's face flushed. That bag was a gift, she said quickly. From whom? I challenged. A friend. Which friend spends thousands on designer gifts? The table had become an uncomfortable tribunal, with the Hayes and Porters shifting awkwardly in their seats, clearly wishing they were anywhere else. I think this family discussion might be better continued in private, Mr. Porter suggested gently. You are right, I agreed, standing up. And I will make it short. I am done paying your rent, Vanessa. You have 30 days to figure out your finances like an adult. My father's face darkened with anger. You cannot just cut her off without warning. Where is she supposed to go? She could move in with you and Brenda, I suggested. Convert that home gym back into a bedroom. Or she could get roommates or work full-time. Or any of the solutions that do not involve me sacrificing my financial future. Why are you doing this publicly? My father demanded. Is this some kind of revenge? No, Dad. This is me finally standing up for myself after years of being called selfish by people who have no idea what I have been giving up. You wanted to know why I do not take vacations or pursue hobbies. Now you know. With that, I picked up my purse and prepared to leave. So you are just going to drop this bomb and walk away? My father called after me. This is why people find you difficult, Audra. You always have to make a scene instead of handling things maturely like your sister. I turned back one last time, surveying the table. The shocked faces of the dinner guests, Brenda's tight, uncomfortable smile, Vanessa's tear-filled eyes already calculating her next move, and my father, still somehow casting me as the villain in a story where I had been silently saving everyone for years. I am handling things exactly as maturely as they deserve to be handled, I said calmly. Enjoy your dessert. I will see myself out. The sound of my heels on the hardwood floor echoed through the dining room as I walked away, leaving behind the weight of expectations and obligation I had carried for too long. For the first time in years, despite the confrontation and its inevitable fallout, I felt something close to freedom. The drive home from the country club was surreal. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. But inside, I felt a strange mixture of terror and liberation. Years of carefully maintained family dynamics had just been blown apart at an upscale dining table. And there was no going back. I barely made it through my apartment door before my phone exploded with notifications. 3 missed calls from my father, 5 from Vanessa, and a text from my mother asking what happened. Word traveled fast in our family circle. I silenced my phone and poured myself a glass of wine, hands still shaking slightly. Then I called the one person I knew would understand. I did it, I told Derek when he answered. I told everyone the truth about Vanessa's rent. How did it go? He asked cautiously. About as well as a nuclear explosion. Can I come over? I do not want to be alone right now. 30 minutes later, I was sitting on Derek's couch, recounting every excruciating detail of the dinner confrontation. He listened without interruption, occasionally squeezing my hand in support. I am proud of you, he said when I finished. It took incredible courage to stand up for yourself like that. It does not feel like courage, I admitted. It feels like I just destroyed my family. You did not destroy anything. You just stopped pretending the existing situation was okay. My phone buzzed again and I glanced down to see a text from my father. Your behavior tonight was inexcusable. You embarrassed this family in front of my friends. We need to talk tomorrow when you have calmed down and can be reasonable. I showed Derek the message and he shook his head. Still making it about him, I see. That is his specialty, I sighed. I turned off my phone completely and spent the night at Derek's apartment, grateful for the buffer of physical distance from the storm I had created. Morning came too quickly, and with it the reality that I would have to face the consequences of my truth-telling. When I finally turned my phone back on around noon the next day, the barrage was immediate. 14 missed calls, 23 text messages, and several voicemails demanding my attention. Vanessa's texts ranged from angry, "How could you humiliate me like that?" to desperate, "Please call me. We need to figure this out," to manipulative, "I guess you never really cared about me at all." My mother, who had not been at the dinner but had clearly received multiple versions of what happened, sent a typically conflicted message. I understand you have been helping your sister more than anyone knew, but publicly embarrassing her, and your father was not the answer. Can we talk about finding a solution that works for everyone? The most surprising message came from Brenda, my father's wife. I had no idea you were supporting Vanessa financially. While the dinner table was not the place for this conversation, I respect that you have been carrying a burden alone. Your father is very upset, but I think everyone needs to acknowledge your side of this situation. It was the first time Brenda had ever shown any understanding of my perspective, and despite everything, I felt a small glimmer of hope that at least one person in the family might be capable of seeing beyond the established narrative. I called my mother first, figuring she would be the most neutral party. The conversation was difficult, but not hostile. She admitted she had suspected Vanessa was receiving help from someone but had assumed it was our father. You should have told me, she said. I could have helped mediate this situation before it exploded. Would you have? I asked honestly. Or would you have tried to convince me to keep helping her, to keep the peace like always? Her silence was answer enough. By Monday morning, I needed to return to work and face the real world despite the ongoing family drama. I had barely settled at my desk when the receptionist called to inform me my sister was in the lobby insisting on seeing me. Tell her I am in a meeting, I said, not ready for another emotional confrontation. 10 minutes later, my direct line rang. Your sister is making a scene in the lobby, the receptionist said, sounding strained. She is crying and saying she will not leave until you speak with her. This was classic Vanessa, creating a public spectacle to force my compliance. In the past, I would have given in immediately, rushing down to placate her. This time I took a deep breath and considered my options. Please tell security to escort her out if she does not leave voluntarily, I said firmly, and let her know I will call her after work hours. It felt harsh but necessary. For too long, I had allowed Vanessa's emergencies to dictate my responses, disrupting my work and life. Those days were over. Later that evening, I called Vanessa as promised, bracing myself for the emotional manipulation I knew would come. How could you have security remove me? She demanded immediately. I am your sister. You cannot show up at my workplace and create a scene, I replied calmly. That is a boundary I am setting right now. I would not have had to come there if you had answered your phone. I am in crisis, Audra. What am I supposed to do about my apartment? I cannot afford $1,200 a month on my own. I know, I acknowledged. That is why I am giving you 30 days notice rather than cutting you off immediately. You have options, Vanessa. You can find roommates, move to a less expensive neighborhood, or increase your work hours. Many people live in Chicago on your income. Those are not real options. You know I cannot live with strangers, and I need to be in that neighborhood for my social connections and potential career opportunities. The conversation continued in circles with Vanessa cycling through anger, pleading, guilt-tripping, and finally, when nothing else worked, vague threats. Dad is furious with you, she said. He says you have always been jealous of our relationship, and this is your way of punishing both of us. That is his interpretation, I replied, refusing to be baited. My decision is about my financial boundaries, not punishment. After an exhausting hour, I ended the call with nothing resolved except my own determination to stand firm. The next day, my father called my office line, knowing I would likely answer a call during business hours. We need to discuss this situation like adults, he began without preamble. Your sister is distraught. I am happy to discuss it, I agreed. But my decision is final. I cannot continue paying her rent. This sudden cutoff is vindictive and you know it, he said. If you are having financial difficulties, you should have said something earlier instead of creating this dramatic scene. I am not having difficulties. I am choosing to allocate my money differently, toward my own goals and future. He sighed heavily. And what about your sister's future? Have you thought about how this affects her? Have you thought about how supporting her completely for 2 years has affected mine? I countered. That was your choice, he said dismissively. No one forced you to pay her rent. And now it is my choice to stop, just as it is your choice whether to help her yourself. There was a telling pause. Our circumstances are different. Brenda and I have our retirement to consider. So do I pointed out. And unlike you, I am only in my 30s. I have not even been able to start properly saving for mine because I have been subsidizing Vanessa. The conversation deteriorated from there, with my father eventually suggesting a compromise where I would continue paying half of Vanessa's rent indefinitely. When I refused, he accused me of being stubborn and unreasonable, just as he had throughout my childhood. The following weeks brought more confrontations and attempts at manipulation. My aunt called to tell me how disappointed she was in my lack of family loyalty. My uncle suggested I was overreacting to a little financial help between sisters. Even my mother, after initially seeming to understand, began pressuring me to find a middle ground that inevitably involved me continuing to support Vanessa in some capacity. Through it all, I maintained the boundary I had set. With Derek's support in several emergency sessions with my therapist, I weathered the emotional storm of being cast as the villain in my family's narrative. 3 weeks after the country club confrontation, Vanessa showed up at my apartment on a Sunday afternoon. Her appearance was uncharacteristically subdued, her designer clothes replaced by simple jeans and a t-shirt, her usually perfect makeup minimal. "Can we talk?" she asked when I opened the door. "Really talk, not fight?" I let her in cautiously, preparing myself for another manipulation attempt. But as we sat across from each other at my small dining table, I saw something in her expression I had rarely witnessed before: genuine vulnerability. "I have been horrible to you," she said quietly. "I knew what I was doing was wrong, taking advantage of your help month after month. But it was so easy to just let it continue." I stayed silent, waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the request that inevitably followed these rare moments of self-awareness. "I found a roommate situation in Ravenswood," she continued. 3 girls in a converted loft. The rent would be $800 a month for my share. I can actually afford that with my current job if I pick up more hours. "That sounds like a good solution," I said carefully. "I also wanted to say I am sorry. Not just for the money, but for letting Dad think you were the selfish one all these years when I was the one taking and taking." Her eyes filled with tears, but for once they seemed genuine rather than tactical. It was easier to let him see me as the struggling one who needed protection. For the first time in our adult relationship, we had a conversation that felt honest. Vanessa admitted she had developed a pattern of learned helplessness that served her in our family dynamic. I acknowledged that my enabling had contributed to the problem, stemming from my own need for approval and fear of conflict. "I do love you," I told her. "That has never been in question, but our relationship needs to change if it is going to survive." She nodded, wiping away tears. "I know. I am trying to change too. This whole thing has been a wake-up call." As she left, promising to keep me updated on her apartment move, I felt cautiously optimistic. Perhaps this crisis would ultimately lead to something healthier between us. Only time would tell if Vanessa's newfound insight would translate into lasting change, but it was a start. 2 years have passed since that explosive night at the country club, and the landscape of my family has been completely reshaped. The change wasn't instant but slow, steady, and built on the foundation of honesty we were all forced to confront. Today is my graduation. I finished the master's program I had put on hold for so long, and I did it with honors. Last week, Derek, now my fiancé, and I closed on our first condo, the one I had stopped saving for all those years ago. As I stand in the auditorium wearing my cap and gown, I look out at my family sitting in the front row. My mother is beaming, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. My father is there, looking at me with an expression I haven't seen since I was a little girl. Pure, uncomplicated pride. Next to him is Vanessa. She's a manager at the boutique now, and she took 2 extra shifts to afford the plane ticket to fly in for the ceremony. Later, at the small celebration we have at our new condo, Vanessa hands me a clumsily wrapped gift. Inside is a beautiful handcrafted ceramic vase, slightly lopsided but painted in my favorite shades of blue. "I finally took that pottery class," she says with a shy smile. "I paid for it myself." My father stands up to make a toast. He raises his glass, not to Vanessa's charm or his own success, but to me. "To Audrey," he says, his voice thick with emotion, "who taught me that strength isn't about being the loudest person in the room, but about having the quiet integrity to build your own life, even when no one is watching. We are all so incredibly proud of you." In that moment, surrounded by the people I love, I finally feel seen. The journey from resentment to this beautiful, honest peace wasn't easy, but it taught me that your truth is the most powerful tool you have. If my story resonated with you, if you've ever felt like you had to fight for your own space in the world, I'd be honored if you'd subscribe. Join our community of strong, authentic individuals who are learning to put themselves first and redefine what family means. Click that subscribe button and share your own story in the comments below. Thank you for listening.